Hi guys, welcome to a past paper review video at Newton's Academy. This is just one video in a series of videos where we'll be doing past paper reviews and walking you through them. So check back every week for a new video. Today we'll be looking at question 1. Starting with question 1.1.1, we have two brackets next to each other, and we know whenever we have two brackets next to each other, we can consider them one term, and we can equate each term to 0. Okay, so starting with the first bracket, 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. 2x is equal to positive 1, therefore x is equal to a half. The second bracket is x plus 4 is equal to 0, therefore x is equal to negative 4. Okay, moving on, 1.1.2. You can see we have a trinomial, but it's not yet in standard form. So let's go ahead and put that in standard form. 3x squared minus x, taking over the 5 as a negative 5, is equal to 0. Okay, this information in brackets is really important because it tells us the manner in which we need to solve. Okay, it says leave your answer to 2 decimal places. This means we have to use the quadratic formula. Of course, maybe it is possible to use the normal method where you open up 2 brackets, but in some cases it's just too difficult to do. So we will use the quadratic formula, which is x is equal to negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Substituting the values in. For b, we have negative 1, so negative 1 plus minus negative 1 squared minus 4 into a, which is 3, into c, which is negative 5, all over 2 into a, which is 3. Okay, inputting this in our calculator and we'll get two answers, one being 1.47 and the other being negative 1.14. Okay, moving on to question 1.1.3. Okay, we again here have a trinomial, but instead of an equals to sign, we have an inequality. Okay, for these types of questions, we're going to treat the inequality initially as an equals to sign and solve for x. Okay, so we're going to put it as x squared plus 7x minus 8. We all write CV. It's important to put that down because this indicates that it's your critical values and not your actual answer. Okay, following the same method as in the previous question, we can go and input it in the calculator and also using the quadratic formula come up with two answers. Okay, or in this case here it's two simple numbers, so you can even open up 2 brackets and solve for it normally, but in this case here you'll get negative 8 and positive 1. Okay, from here we draw up our number line. Just a rough number line. Okay, negative 8 comes first, positive 1 after it, and we draw 2 circles on the top of these numbers. Okay, so when the circle is uncolored, it represents just a normal inequality like that. And if it is shaded in, so if the circle was like this, it represents an equals to inequality. Okay, in this case here, obviously we just have the normal inequality, so it's unshaded. From here, we need to determine what values are we interested in. So what value lies between positive 1 and negative 8? The easiest one to determine the sign of would be 0. So we substitute 0 within our original equation, and we can see that x squared will cancel out, 7x will cancel out, and we're left with a negative 8. So negative goes here, and of course it alternates with signs, so negative, positive, and on the other side positive as well. Okay, now we look to our inequality, and our inequality is pointing towards the left. Whenever we have one that points towards the left, we are interested in the negative, and whenever we have it pointing towards the right, we are interested in the positive. So in this case here, it's pointing towards the left, we are interested in the negative, and the negative happens to be between these two numbers. From there, because we know it's a between function or inequality, we can go and write x, our two signs, negative 8 comes first, and then positive 1. let's move on. We have question 1.2, which states that 4y minus x is equal to 4 and xy is equal to 8. Solve for x and y simultaneously. Okay, so in this case here, the first thing you want to do is look for which equation is more simple to put into standard form or to make a subject or formula. In this case here, the second equation has x and y together as a multiplication between them, so it's a bit more difficult to separate, whereas the first one has x alone in that equation. So we're going to go ahead and make x subject or formula there. We're left with x is equal to 4y minus 4 and xy is equal to 8. Okay, from here we can take this first equation here, label it 1, second one 2, and substitute 1 into 2. Okay, so we have xy is equal to 8. We know what's the value of x in terms of y. We're going to open up our bracket. 4y minus 4 into y is equal to 8. Distributing the y within, we get 4y squared minus 4y is equal to 8. We can see this forms a trinomial, so we're going to put it in standard form. 4y squared minus 4y minus 8 is equal to 0. Following the steps of the previous two questions, we can either go and open up two brackets, or we can use the quadratic formula. In this case here, you'll just use the quadratic formula and get your two y values. One of them is going to be -1, the other one +2. Okay, we're not yet done. We only found the y values. Now we need to go and find the x values. Okay, we know that the formula for x is equal to 4y minus 4. We know what's the value of y. In this case here, we'll first use -1 minus 4 is equal to -8. The other y value would go in and it would be 4 into 2 minus 4 is equal to +4. Therefore, you have two x values and two y values. Okay, the next question says the graph of 4y minus x is equal to 4 is reflected across the line having equation y is equal to x. What is the equation of the reflected line? Okay, so in this case here, whenever they speak about a reflection about the line y is equal to x, they're basically saying you need to take whatever was on the x values and swap it with what was on the y values. Okay, so just a graphical representation. This is what the line of y is equal to x is. Okay, it's the one that goes through the center, and it's a positive gradient, of course. And whatever values were on the y axis now become the values on the x-axis. So what we simply have to do is, let's just rewrite the equation. 4y minus x is equal to 4. All you have to do is swap the x and the y. Therefore, you left with 4x minus y is equal to 4. Okay, you can go and make that subject of formula y. So you'll have 4x minus 4. Okay, moving on to question 1.3. This is a nature of roots question. It says the solutions of a quadratic equation are given by x is equal to that. For which values of b will the equation have two equal solutions? Okay, so it's important to know that in nature of roots, we have the delta equation. Okay, so let's just go and write it here. 1.3.1, and delta is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, now they've said that will the equation have two equal solutions, so that we know when it's equal, we have it equal to 0. So whatever this is, delta must be equal to 0. Okay, so whatever this is, it must equate to 0. Okay, so in this case here, let's go and look at our equation again. It says x is equal to this. Okay, so we don't typically have a trinomial to go by. Okay, but this here is actually a more simpler form, because b squared minus 4ac comes from this part of this equation. Okay, so whatever is under that root is actually b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so just removing the square root, we're left with 2p plus 5. And because it must be equal roots, it's equal to 0. 2p is equal to negative 5. Therefore, p is equal to negative 5 over 2. Moving on, 1.3.2. It states that for which values of p will the equation have no real solutions? Okay, so that now it's also important to know that for it to have non-real solutions, it has to be less than 0. Okay, so delta less than 0, and we have the equation for delta, which is 2p plus 5. Taking the 5 over is a negative 5, and again dividing by 2, we get negative 5 over 2.